My mother handed my sister the family jewelry box and gave me only an empty one. But when I opened it, I realized she had given me everything. I never thought a small velvet box could shatter my heart so violently. The memory is still sharp, etched in my mind like glass that refuses to dull. We were seated in the living room of my childhood home, the house where every photograph of birthdays and Christmases hung on the walls like silent witnesses to our family's history. It was supposed to be a day of closure, a day when my mother would pass down her most precious possessions to her daughters. A moment heavy with tradition and sentiment. She sat in her favorite armchair, frail but commanding, her eyes darting between me and my younger sister, Rachel. I could see the tension already building in Rachel's smirk, that smugness she wore like armor whenever she thought she was about to win. I had seen that same expression on her face since childhood, in every contest, every family disagreement, every competition where she believed she deserved more simply because she was the younger one, the favorite. Mother's hand trembled as she reached into the cedar chest beside her chair. Inside were items that carried the weight of generations. Jewelry passed down from grandmothers, heirlooms that spoke of sacrifice and love, pieces that were meant to carry not just monetary value but emotional legacy. My chest tightened as I leaned forward, waiting for her decision. "Rachel," Mother said softly, her voice laced with a weariness that came from years of illness and exhaustion. She extended a polished mahogany box toward my sister. Rachel's fingers snatched it almost eagerly, her eyes shining with greed before she even knew what was inside. When she opened it, the light from the chandelier above caught the sparkle of gold, rubies, and diamonds. My mother's entire collection of jewelry, carefully polished, beautifully displayed, sat in neat rows inside. Rachel gasped dramatically, her voice echoing with false modesty. "Oh, Mother, thank you so much. These are beautiful." Her hands caressed the necklaces and rings like she had been waiting her whole life for this moment. My heart sank, but I forced a smile. Surely Mother had something meaningful for me as well. Something that would show she had not forgotten the years I had spent caring for her, when no one else would. Then Mother turned to me. I felt the weight of her gaze, tired and burdened, yet strangely resigned. Her hand reached into the cedar chest once more, and she pulled out a smaller item this time, a plain, worn-out velvet box. It looked as though it had not been opened in decades. "For you, Anna," she said, her voice low. I reached out and took it carefully. The fabric was frayed, the hinge creaked as I lifted it, and inside, to my horror, there was nothing, just an empty space where something should have been, the faint outline of an object long gone. Its imprint left behind on the lining dot. My throat tightened, and for a moment I could not breathe. I searched her eyes for an explanation, for some sign that this was a mistake. "It is empty," I whispered, my voice shaking. Rachel let out a cruel laugh, the kind that pierced straight into my chest. "Empty? Oh, Anna, how fitting, after all these years of being the plain one, the dutiful one. I suppose Mother decided to leave you with what you deserve." She tilted her head mockingly. "Nothing." I felt the blood rush to my face, shame burning through me. My mother did not look at me, nor did she correct Rachel's venom. She simply folded her hands in her lap, her eyes drifting away as if she could not bear to meet mine. The silence between us grew unbearable. Every corner of that living room seemed to close in on me. Childhood memories of running through those halls, of being kissed goodnight, of reading to her when she was too tired to hold the book herself, all collided with this brutal present. "Mother," I tried again, my voice breaking. "Why is it empty? Was there something meant for me?" Her lips trembled as though words wanted to escape, but none came. Rachel snapped the lid of her jewelry box shut and grinned like a victor in a war I never agreed to fight. In that moment, I felt not only cheated but invisible, erased from my own family's story. The box sat heavy in my lap, mocking me with its emptiness. I wanted to throw it across the room, to scream, to demand answers, but something inside told me to stay silent. My mother's health was fragile, and my questions seemed like weights she could no longer carry. I left that day with the box clutched in my hands, Rachel's laughter still echoing in my ears. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of headlights and tears, every mile stretched out like an accusation. How could she give Rachel everything, and me nothing? How could a mother look at one daughter as worthy and the other as disposable? When I finally stumbled into my apartment, I placed the box on the kitchen table and stared at it under the dim light. It looked so ordinary, so worthless. Yet something inside me stirred. Why would she give me an empty box at all? If she truly wanted to leave me nothing, she could have simply done nothing. I leaned closer, running my fingers along the velvet. The hinge was loose, the lining faded, but there was something odd about the way the interior felt. I pressed the base gently, and for the first time, I noticed a faint hollow sound beneath the fabric. My pulse quickened. I dug my nails into the seam, tugging at the lining until it tore slightly, and there it was, a hidden compartment. Inside, folded so small it was almost invisible, lay an old piece of paper. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. The edges were yellowed with age, the ink faded, but I could still make out the delicate handwriting. It was my mother's. The letter began with my name. To my dearest Anna. I sank into the chair, my heart hammering, as I unfolded the pages and began to read. Asterisk, the first line made my throat tighten. My beloved Anna, I know that when you read this, I will no longer be able to explain myself in person. Please believe me when I say that what you hold in your hands is not emptiness, but everything I have left for you. I clutched the letter tighter, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. The room around me seemed to disappear, leaving only the shaky script of my mother's words and the sound of my own breathing. She continued, all your life, you have carried burdens I wished I could lift from your shoulders. You cared for me when others turned away, you listened when I had no voice, and you stayed when others walked out. I know it looked today as though I chose Rachel over you, but what you saw was not the truth. My gift to her was only what she expected. My gift to you is hidden, and it is far greater. I wiped at the tears streaming down my face, trying to steady myself. My mother's words seemed to be reaching from beyond the grave, holding my hand through the fog of betrayal. There is a key, she wrote, concealed beneath the lining of this box. That key will unlock a place only you can enter. Do not let Rachel or anyone else discover it until you are ready. Trust that what I left for you is not measured in jewels, but in the life you will find when you follow where the key leads. My hands shook as I pressed again at the box's lining. With a little more force, the fabric gave way, and there it was, a small, tarnished key, tied with a faded ribbon. My breath caught in my throat. What did it open? Where would it lead me? Why had she hidden it away instead of handing it to me openly? The weight of questions pressed against me, but one thing was clear. My mother had not left me with nothing. She had left me with a secret. The days that followed were filled with restless nights and distracted mornings. I kept the box locked, away in my drawer, the letter folded neatly beside the key. I could not bring myself to tell Rachel. She was already parading her jewelry across social media, showing off bracelets and necklaces with smug captions about family treasures. Her friends flooded the comments with envy. The sight of it made me sick, but I said nothing. Every time she called, it was only to gloat. You should have seen Mother's face when she handed me the jewelry, she said one evening over the phone. She knew who deserved it. Honestly, Anna, you should be grateful she even gave you anything at all. My grip tightened around the phone until my knuckles went white. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her she had no idea what Mother had truly left for me, but something inside whispered that I should stay silent. Not yet. Not until I understood the full meaning of the gift. Finally, a week after the funeral, I could no longer contain my curiosity. I spread the letter on the table again and traced the words, looking for any clue. There was one line I had overlooked the first time, scrawled in smaller handwriting at the bottom. The key belongs to the old writing desk in my bedroom. Look beneath the false drawer. My chest tightened as adrenaline surged through me. Knew that desk. It had sat in Mother's room for as long as I could remember, its wood worn smooth from years of use. She wrote letters there, paid bills, even kept her private journal inside. That night, when Rachel was out boasting at another dinner party, I drove back to the family home. The house was empty now, cold and silent without Mother's presence. I let myself in with the spare key and crept up the stairs to her bedroom. The writing desk sat against the wall, exactly as I remembered it. My fingers trembled as I slid the tarnished key into the lock. It clicked open with surprising ease. Inside, at first glance, were only papers, receipts, envelopes, scattered notes. But I remembered Mother's words. I pulled at the bottom drawer, and sure enough, the base felt loose. My heart hammered as I pressed at the edges, and the false panel shifted away. Beneath it lay a thick leather folder, tied shut with a cord. My hands shook violently as I lifted it out. Dust clung to its surface, the smell of old paper rising into the air. I untied the cord and opened it. What I found inside made my breath catch: deeds, bank statements, legal documents with my name written clearly across them, and tucked at the very bottom, a sealed envelope labeled, "For Anna, when she is ready." I sank onto the edge of the bed, the folder heavy in my lap. My fingers slid under the flap of the envelope, and as I pulled out the letter inside, I felt as though the walls around me were holding their breath. "My darling girl," it began, again, in my mother's delicate handwriting. "If you are reading this, it means you have found the truth. You must understand that appearances were necessary. Rachel believes she won, but she only holds trinkets. What I have given you is the future. Do not let her steal this from you. Guard it carefully until the time comes to claim what is yours." Tears blurred my vision as I read on. She had left me ownership of something hidden away, something she never told anyone else about. It was bigger than jewelry, bigger than a house. She spoke of land, of heritage, of a legacy she had kept secret from Rachel and even from my father. I pressed the letter to my chest, my sobs breaking the silence of the empty house. For years, I had felt like the invisible daughter, the one left behind. Now, for the first time, I realized my mother had seen me all along. She had trusted me with more than I could have ever imagined. But even as hope flared in my chest, fear crept in. Rachel would never forgive me if she found out. And if the past had taught me anything, it was that my sister's greed knew no bounds. I closed the folder, locked it back inside the desk, and slipped the key into my pocket. My mother had left me a mystery, and I was determined to uncover every piece of it. As I walked out of that darkened bedroom, I knew my life was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke with the folder heavy on my mind. I had locked it back in Mother's desk the night before, but the thought of what it contained pressed against me like a secret too large for my chest. My entire life had shifted in a single night. For the first time in years, I felt the faint stirrings of power, a sense that I had been entrusted with something Rachel could never understand, but that power came with fear. When my phone rang that morning, Rachel's name lit up the screen. My stomach twisted as I answered. "So, Anna," she began with that voice she used when she wanted to needle me, "have you gotten over the disappointment yet? Mother's jewelry looks stunning on me. I wore the sapphire necklace to dinner last night, and people could not stop staring. It really is a piece meant for someone like me." Her words dripped with cruelty, designed to pierce. I forced myself to keep my voice steady. "I am glad you like it, Rachel. Glad I like it," she mocked. "Oh, come on. You must be sick with jealousy. What did Mother even give you? That dusty old box." I cannot stop laughing about it. My grip on the phone tightened. I wanted to shout at her, to tell her the truth, to wipe that smugness out of her voice. But I remembered my mother's warning in the letter. "Not yet." I swallowed hard. It was what she wanted me to have. Rachel laughed again, sharp and cruel. "Well, then I guess she thought you deserved nothing. Fitting, really." She hung up before I could reply. I sat at the table, my hands trembling with rage. She had no idea. She paraded her jewels like trophies while I held the keys to something far more powerful. Yet the weight of the secret gnawed at me. If she ever found out, what would she do? Later that day, I returned to the house. I moved quickly, my eyes darting to the windows as though Rachel might suddenly appear. Upstairs, I unlocked the desk and retrieved the folder again. This time, I spread the documents out across the bed. The deeds were old, some dating back nearly a century. The land described was vast, far larger than I could picture in my mind. It lay on the outskirts of town, a stretch of rolling hills and wooded acres that our family had always spoken of as useless, uninhabited. But according to the latest papers, something had changed. A company had approached my mother about purchasing the land. Their offer was staggeringly high. I covered my mouth with both hands, my breath shaky. This was not just an inheritance. This was a fortune. And it was in my name alone. Mother had kept this secret from Rachel, from everyone. I imagined her frail hands tucking the folder into the false drawer, her mind racing with fear of what Rachel might do if she knew. She had trusted me to be the one to carry it, to protect it. As I sat there, a storm of emotions whirled inside me: gratitude, disbelief, fear, and beneath it all, a quiet determination. I could not let Rachel destroy this. I had seen her greed firsthand, the way she consumed anything valuable until it turned to ash. If she got her hands on this, she would burn it all down. I tucked the documents back into the folder and locked them away once more. But as I turned the key, I heard a noise downstairs. My blood ran cold. The front door creaked open. Footsteps echoed across the wooden floor. Anna. Rachel's voice rang through the house. Panic surged in my chest. She could not see me with the folder. She could not even know I was in Mother's room. I shoved the folder back into the false drawer, slammed it shut, and slipped the key into my pocket. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped it. I stepped into the hallway just as Rachel appeared at the top of the stairs. She was dressed in a designer coat, the sapphire necklace glinting at her throat. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. I forced a calm expression. "I came to clean up some of Mother's things. I thought it would be good to start sorting." Rachel crossed her arms, suspicion etched on her face. "Funny, I was going to do the same. I guess we had the same idea." Her eyes flicked toward the bedroom door, and my stomach tightened. Did she suspect? I could not let her linger here. "I was just leaving," I said quickly, moving past her. She smirked as she stepped aside. "Do not take anything that does not belong to you, Anna. Remember, Mother already decided who deserved what." Her words clawed at me as I walked down the stairs. Every instinct screamed that she knew something, that she could sense there was more, and she would not rest until she uncovered it. That night, I lay awake in bed, clutching the key in my fist. I could not let Rachel discover the truth, but I also could not leave the folder hidden in the desk forever. If she ever decided to search the house thoroughly, she might stumble upon it. I needed to move it. The next day, I returned once more. This time, I carried an old backpack. I locked the folder inside and carried it out with me, my heart racing the entire time. As I drove away, I glanced at the house in the rearview mirror, feeling as though the walls themselves were watching me. Back at my apartment, I hid the folder in the back of my closet, beneath stacks of old winter clothes. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of safety. But safety was temporary. Rachel's calls grew more frequent, more pointed. She wanted to know when we would officially divide the rest of Mother's belongings. She wanted to go through every drawer, every chest, every corner of the house. Each time she spoke, her hunger for more was palpable. And then one evening, her words froze my blood. "You know, Anna," she said slyly, "Mother always had her secrets. I have a feeling she left more behind than we realize. I planned to find it." My chest tightened. She was circling closer, like a predator sensing prey. After we hung up, I opened the folder again, desperate for answers. At the bottom, I found another note, one I had overlooked before. It was shorter, written in a hurried scrawl. "Anna, if you are reading this, then you must be careful. What I left you is not just valuable in money. It is valuable in history, in legacy. People will come for it. Protect it with your life." The words sent a chill down my spine. This was bigger than I had imagined. It was not just about Rachel anymore. It was about something far beyond our family, something others would want. I folded the note and tucked it back inside, my hands trembling. The weight of my mother's secret was crushing me, yet it also fueled me with a strength I had never known. I looked around my small apartment, suddenly aware that the world outside might not be as safe as I had thought. Mother had trusted me. Now it was up to me to decide whether I could carry that trust without breaking. And somewhere deep inside, I knew Rachel would not stop until she uncovered what I was hiding. The following week, Rachel insisted we meet at Mother's house to continue sorting through her belongings. She called it a family duty, but I knew better. She was searching. The way her voice lingered on the word belongings made my skin prickle. When I arrived, Rachel was already there. She stood in the living room with her arms crossed, the sapphire necklace around her throat gleaming in the light as though she wanted to remind me, again, of her supposed victory. "You are late," she said coldly. "I had things to do," I answered, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me shrink. Rachel's smile was tight and brittle. "Well, let us get started. Mother's bedroom first." I am sure she kept more valuables tucked away. My chest tightened. Mother's bedroom was exactly where the false drawer had been. I forced myself to nod, hiding the surge of panic that rose inside me. Rachel swept into the room with the air of a queen inspecting her castle. She pulled open drawers, rifled through boxes, tossed old scarves and letters onto the bed. I stood by the dresser, pretending to fold linens while my eyes tracked her every move. "Look at this," Rachel said, holding up a small silver trinket box. She shook it, frowning when nothing rattled inside. Empty. How typical of Mother to leave us scraps while she paraded around with these dusty relics. Those meant something to her, I replied softly. Rachel snorted. Meaning does not pay bills. Her words stung, but I bit my tongue. If she only knew what lay hidden in the closet of my apartment, she would not be speaking so carelessly. As she tore through drawers, she paused, her sharp eyes scanning the desk. She walked toward it with deliberate steps. Funny. I never noticed this drawer looked so deep, she said, tapping her nails against the wood. My heart slammed against my ribs. She knelt and tugged at the handle, pulling the drawer all the way out. For a terrifying moment, I thought she had found the false compartment, but when she peered inside, her face fell with disappointment. Empty, she muttered. Then she turned to me, her gaze suspicious. You would tell me if you found anything important, wouldn't you, Anna? I forced a calm smile. Of course. Rachel studied me for a long, tense moment, then shrugged and moved on. By the time we finished, the room looked stripped, as though Rachel had gutted it for treasure. I gathered the discarded scarves and letters, carefully folding them into a box. To me, these scraps mattered. To her, they were trash. That as I carried the box downstairs, Rachel followed. I will be back tomorrow, she announced. There are still closets to check. Mother must have hidden something more valuable than that jewelry, and I intend to find it. I froze at the bottom of the stairs. Her words confirmed my worst fear. She was hunting, and she would not stop. That night, I pulled the folder out again, spreading the documents across my kitchen table. My hand shook as I examined them more closely. The company's offer was astonishing. Nearly $10 million for the land. I tried to picture that number, tried to imagine what it meant. For someone like me, who had always lived modestly, it was impossible to grasp. But what unsettled me more was the letter Mother had written. She had warned me that people would come for it. Who were these people? Was it only Rachel? Or were there others who knew about the land's value? I searched the deeds for answers, reading every word, tracing the lines of the property maps. That was when I noticed something I had missed before. On the corner of one document, scribbled in my mother's handwriting, were 3 words: do not sell. My breath caught. Why would she write that? The company's offer was staggering. Selling would have solved every problem, secured my future, freed me from Rachel's cruelty. Yet Mother had warned me against it. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the papers. My mind raced with questions. Was there something hidden on that land? Something more valuable than money? The next day, I decided I had to see it for myself. The property lay outside of town, a stretch of rolling hills and dense woods. I drove there in silence, my hands gripping the wheel, my heart pounding. When I arrived, I parked by the edge of the land and stepped out. The air was crisp, the kind that carried whispers of secrets. The hills stretched before me, wild and untouched. I walked along the dirt path, the grass crunching beneath my shoes, until I reached a grove of ancient oaks. Their twisted branches formed a canopy above me, filtering the sunlight into patterns on the ground. There was a strange stillness there, as though the land itself was watching. I wandered deeper, following a faint trail. At one point, I stumbled over a rock half buried in the dirt. When I brushed away the soil, I saw markings carved into its surface, faded, weather-worn, but still visible. Symbols. My breath quickened. This was no ordinary land. I spent hours exploring, discovering more signstones with etchings, fragments of old wooden posts, even what looked like the outline of a foundation hidden beneath moss and weeds. It was as though a forgotten world lay buried beneath these hills. When the sun began to set, I hurried back to my car, my mind racing. Mother had known. That was why she told me not to sell. This land held history, secrets that stretched far beyond our family. As I drove home, headlights glared in my rearview mirror. A car had been following me since I left the property. My chest tightened with fear. I took a sharp turn, then another, trying to lose them. But each time I glanced back, the car was still there. Finally, I pulled into a crowded gas station and parked. The car slowed, paused, then drove past. I sat in my car, trembling. Mother had been right. Others wanted this land. When I got home, I shoved the documents back into the closet and locked the door. My heart would not stop pounding. The phone rang. Rachel's voice filled the line. "Were you out today?" she asked casually, but her tone was sharp, probing. "Why do you ask?" I replied carefully. "Oh, nothing," she said. though I could hear the smile in her voice. I just have a feeling you are hiding something. And when I find out what it is, Anna, do not expect me to be kind. She hung up, leaving me in silence. I stared at the phone in my hand, my pulse thundering. The walls of my small apartment suddenly felt like they were closing in. Mother's warning echoed in my ears. Protect it with your life. And for the first time, I truly understood what she meant. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen flashed Rachel's name. My stomach clenched. I let it ring until it stopped, but the silence did not last long. A new message appeared. I know what you are hiding. Meet me at Mother's house today. Do not make me come to you. My hands shook as I read the words. She was closing in. Somehow, Rachel could sense that I had something she did not. I tried to calm myself by pacing across the small apartment, but my thoughts spun wildly. That the folder was still locked in the closet. I pulled it out again and spread the papers on the table. My eyes lingered on the maps of the land. Something about the marked boundaries caught my attention. In one corner, near the grove of oaks I had visited, a section was outlined in red ink. Mother had drawn it herself. Beside it, she had written 3 words in her familiar hand. Our true inheritance. My chest tightened. What had she meant? Spent the rest of the morning researching the property. Old archives online described settlements that had existed there centuries ago. Farmers, builders, even rumors of hidden treasures lost during a war, long before our family lived in this country. The land was not just valuable because of its size. It was a part of history. The deeper I dug, the more I realized why Mother had insisted I protect it. Selling it would erase that history forever. And perhaps, hidden beneath the soil, there was something far greater than money could buy. By noon, I could not resist any longer. I drove back to the land, this time armed with a flashlight, gloves, and a notebook. The grove of oaks loomed ahead like silent guardians. I knelt near the carved stone I had found before and searched the ground around it. My fingers brushed against uneven soil. I dug carefully until my nails scraped against something solid. It was a wooden box, weathered and fragile with age. My heart thundered as I pulled it free and pried it open. Inside were yellowed papers, brittle with time. I unfolded one and gasped. It was a deed, dated nearly 200 years ago, signed by a man whose name I recognized from local history. He had been a wealthy merchant, and according to the document, he had left behind not only the land, but instructions for his descendants to protect it. There were other papers, 2 letters, contracts, and a faded map marked with symbols similar to those carved on the stones. I realized I was holding proof that the land carried more than monetary worth. It was a legacy stretching across generations. As I stuffed the papers back into the box, I heard a sound behind me, twigs snapping. My body froze. Slowly, I turned. A figure stood at the edge of the grove. Rachel. Her arms were crossed, her eyes narrowed, her expression sharp with triumph. I knew it, she said, her voice cutting through the quiet air. You found something. Give it to me. Panic surged through me. It belongs to me, I said firmly, clutching the box to my chest. Rachel stepped closer, her heels sinking into the earth. Mother never meant for you to have it all. She wanted us to share. That is not true, I replied, my voice shaking. She left you the jewelry because that is what you value. This is mine. Her eyes flashed with anger. You think you can keep secrets from me. You always were the obedient one, the quiet one. But I see you now, Anna. You think you are clever, but you cannot outsmart me. I tightened my grip on the box, refusing to let go. Mother trusted me, not you. Rachel lunged forward, trying to snatch it from my arms. We struggled, the box nearly slipping from my grasp, until I shoved her back with all my strength. She stumbled, her face twisting with rage. You will regret this, she hissed. I will find out what is inside, and when I do, you will be left with nothing. She stormed off, her footsteps crunching against the dirt path until she disappeared beyond the trees. My knees buckled, and I sank to the ground, clutching the box as though it were the only thing keeping me alive. My heart raced. I knew Rachel would not stop. She had seen the box, and now she would do everything in her power to take it. That evening, I locked the box in the same closet with the folder. I sat in the dark, my thoughts racing. Mother's warning had never felt so urgent. Protect it with your life. Now I understood why. The following days turned into a battle of nerves. Rachel called constantly, leaving messages that grew sharper each time. You cannot keep this from me. Mother wanted fairness. If you do not share, I will make sure you regret it. Each threat pressed on me like a weight. But I refused to answer. I poured all my focus into studying the old papers, deciphering the map, and comparing it with modern charts of the land. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The red ink Mother had drawn circled the exact area where the ancient documents indicated a hidden foundation. I returned to the site under cover of dusk, afraid Rachel might follow. With a shovel in hand, I dug at the spot near the carved stone. Hours passed, the sweat dripping from my brow, my muscles aching. Finally, the shovel struck something hard. I knelt and cleared away the dirt. Beneath the soil lay a large stone slab, its surface carved with the same symbols as the others. My breath caught in my throat. This was no ordinary foundation. It was a marker. I pressed my hands against it, searching for a way to move it, but the slab was far too heavy. Frustration surged inside me. What lay beneath was just out of reach. As I sat there in the darkness, the sound of footsteps echoed behind me. My heart stopped. Rachel's voice sliced through the night. I told you I would not stop. I turned to see her standing at the edge of the clearing, her face pale in the moonlight, her eyes burning with fury. You followed me, I whispered. Of course I did, she sneered. Did you really think I would let you run away with everything? Before I could respond, she stepped closer, her gaze fixed on the stone slab. So this is it. This is what you were hiding. I stood quickly, blocking her path. You do not understand. It is not just money or property. It is history. It is what Mother wanted us to protect. Rachel's laugh was sharp and bitter. Protect? You mean control. You want it all for yourself. Her hand shot out, grabbing my arm. I yanked free, my pulse thundering. Stay away, Rachel. This is mine to guard. Her eyes narrowed to slits. We will see about that. She turned and stormed back into the night, leaving me trembling beside the stone slab. I sank to my knees, my body shaking. I knew Rachel would return, and next time, she might not come alone. The morning after Rachel confronted me in the grove, I could not shake the image of her eyes, blazing with fury. She had seen the stone slab. She knew I was hiding something extraordinary. And if there was one thing I understood about my sister, it was that she never stopped once she had caught the scent of what she wanted. I brewed coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the folder and the old wooden box I had unearthed. The papers were spread out in front of me like a puzzle I had only begun to assemble. The deeds, the letters, the ancient map, and Mother's own notes all pointed toward the same truth. There was something hidden beneath that slab. But how was I supposed to uncover it? I had neither the strength nor the equipment to move it alone, and the thought of hiring anyone filled me with dread. What if word spread? What if Rachel found out through another channel? My phone buzzed. Another message from Rachel. You cannot keep it forever. Either we share it, or I will take it. My stomach knotted. She was escalating, pressing harder each day. I deleted the message, but the words lingered in my mind like poison. By late afternoon, I decided I had to make another trip to the land. This time I came prepared with rope, a crowbar, and a small lantern. The drive felt endless, every car behind me a potential tale. I parked further away than usual, walking through the fields until the grove of oaks came into view. The stone slab waited, silent and heavy. I set the lantern beside it and knelt. My hands gripped the crowbar, straining against the edges, but the stone barely shifted. Sweat poured down my back as I tried again, wedging the bar deeper, pulling with all my strength. The ground groaned beneath it, but it refused to move more than a fraction. Frustration burned in my chest. I sat back, panting, staring at the symbols carved into its surface. My fingers traced the markings, searching for a pattern. To my surprise, one section of the carving sank slightly under my touch, as if it were a button worn smooth by centuries. My breath caught. I pressed harder. A faint grinding sound rose from beneath the slab. Dust lifted in the air. The stone shifted slightly more than before. My heart pounded. This was no ordinary foundation marker. It was designed to open. I scrambled for the rope and tied it around a sturdy oak, looping the other end around the slab. With every ounce of strength, I pulled. The stone budged an inch, then another. Finally, with a shudder, it slid aside just enough to reveal a dark hollow beneath. The air that rushed out was cool and musty, smelling of age and secrets. I shone the lantern into the opening. A staircase, narrow and carved into the earth, led down into darkness. I froze. My legs trembled as my mind reeled. Mother had known about this. She had hidden it, protected it, and entrusted me to find it. I wanted to descend, to see what waited below, but the rustling of branches behind me jolted me back. My lantern flickered as I spun around. A figure moved through the trees. Rachel. Her eyes gleamed with hunger as they fell on the open passage. "So it is true," she whispered. "You found it." Fear surged through me. I stepped in front of the opening, blocking her view. "Leave, Rachel. This is not for you." Her laugh was sharp and cold. "Not for me. You think you can hoard this secret. Whatever lies down there belongs to both of us." "No," I said firmly. "Mother trusted me, not you." Her face hardened. She stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. "You always thought you were special, but you are not. You are weak. You cannot protect this. You cannot even lift that stone without someone's help. Do you think you can guard what is inside? You will fail. And when you do, I will be there to take it." I tightened my fists, my body trembling. "You will not touch it." Rachel's eyes blazed, but she did not move closer. She gave me a final, seething look, then turned and stormed away into the night. I collapsed to the ground, my heart hammering. She had seen the entrance. There was no hiding it now. I would have to move quickly. The next day, I locked myself in my apartment and pored over the letters again, hoping for guidance. One letter stood out. It was written in faded ink, signed by the same merchant whose deed I had found. The words sent a chill through me. "To those who guard this place, remember that what lies beneath is not only treasure, but truth. Protect it from those who would seek to destroy for greed. The land is our covenant. Betray it, and you betray our blood." I pressed the letter against the table, my mind racing. Treasure, truth, covenant. Mother had carried this secret for years, and now it was mine to defend. But Rachel was not going to let it go. She had already threatened me, and now that she had seen the entrance, she would stop at nothing. I could not face this alone. Yet I did not know whom to trust. That evening, the phone rang again. This time, I answered. Rachel's voice was sharp. "Meet me tomorrow. We are going to settle this." I hesitated. "Where?" "At the land," she replied. No excuses. The line went dead. I sat in silence, the weight of her command crushing down on me. Tomorrow, she would force a confrontation. Tomorrow, she would demand her share, or worse. That night, I barely slept. Images of the staircase haunted me. What waited in the darkness below? Gold artifacts, secrets that could rewrite history, or something even more dangerous. Morning came with gray skies and heavy air. I drove to the land, my hands gripping the wheels so tightly that my knuckles whitened. When I arrived, Rachel was already there, standing by the slab with her arms crossed. "You came," she said flatly. "I had no choice," I answered. Her eyes flickered to the opening. "Then, let us go down together." My stomach churned. I wanted to refuse to block her path, but I knew she would not leave, and if I went alone, she would only find a way to follow. With trembling hands, I lit the lantern and stepped onto the first stair. The air was cold, damp, and heavy with the scent of earth. Rachel followed close behind, her breath sharp in the silence. The staircase spiraled deeper until the ground opened into a cavern. The lantern's glow revealed stone walls etched with more symbols, their meaning lost to time. In the center of the chamber stood a chest, iron-bound and massive. Rachel gasped, her greed plain on her face. "This is it." I stepped forward, my heart racing. The chest was covered in dust, its lock rusted with age. My hands trembled as I brushed it clean. There was an inscription carved into the lid, "Guarded by blood, opened by truth." I traced the words, my mind spinning. What did it mean? How could it be opened? Rachel shoved past me, clawing at the lock. "Move aside. This is mine." "No," I said, pulling her back. "It is not that simple." She glared at me, her voice sharp with rage. "You cannot keep it from me, Anna. Whatever is inside, I will have it." Her words echoed through the chamber, mingling with the silence of centuries. My hands shook as I realized the truth. This was only the beginning, and Rachel would destroy everything to claim it. Everything to claim it. The air inside the farmhouse felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for me to make my next move. I sat at the small wooden table in the kitchen, the same table where my mother once served warm bread and honey on quiet afternoons, and where Rachel had so often sat across from me with that sly smirk curling on her lips. The kitchen smelled faintly of lavender polish and old wood, a scent that reminded me of her obsessive need to control appearances. That box lay open in front of me, the one my mother had handed me during that fateful inheritance ceremony. For days I had dismissed it as empty, a cruel reminder of what Rachel had gained and what I had lost. Yet when I looked closer, tucked against the lining of the box, I had found a folded piece of paper, yellowed with time. The edges were frayed, and the ink was faded, but the moment I saw my mother's familiar looping script, my hands trembled. This was not just any note, it was something she had meant for me to discover. Not Rachel, not anyone else. For the first time since her passing, I felt as though my mother was reaching out across the grave, whispering secrets directly into my ear. I unfolded the letter, slowly, afraid that my shaking fingers might tear the fragile paper. The words began with my name, written lovingly, Anna. My heart. Already my throat tightened. I braced myself, because whatever lay in these lines would change everything. If you are reading this, then Rachel has already received the jewelry, and you are left with what seems to be nothing. You must not be disheartened. The jewelry was given to her for reasons you may not understand, but you are the one I trust with something far more valuable. Hidden beneath the floorboards of this very kitchen is a ledger. Inside it, you will find the truth about our family, about the sacrifices I made, and about what belongs to you by right. Trust no one but your heart, Anna. This secret, once uncovered, will set you free. The words blurred before my eyes as tears welled up. My mother had known. She had known exactly how it would look, how cruel and humiliating it would feel for me to sit there as Rachel paraded her sparkling inheritance. She had planned it this way, and she had chosen me for something greater. My pulse hammered in my ears as I folded the letter back with delicate care. My eyes darted to the wooden floor beneath my feet, its planks aged and creaking with every movement. Somewhere beneath me lay a hidden ledger, a truth powerful enough for my mother to write about it in secret. I grabbed the lantern from the counter, knelt on the floor, and began feeling along the boards. My palms brushed over each one, searching for some clue, some irregularity. Then, near the far corner of the kitchen by the pantry, I found it, a small, nearly invisible seam that did not align with the rest. My breath caught. I pressed against it, and the board shifted ever so slightly under my weight. My hands scrambled for a grip, and with a sharp pull, the plank lifted away. Dust swirled up, filling my nose, but I did not care. There, tucked carefully into the hollow beneath the floor, was a leather-bound ledger, its surface cracked with age. My fingers shook as I pulled it free, brushing away cobwebs. It felt heavy, not just in weight but in significance. This was the secret my mother had trusted me to find. I carried it to the table, set it down gently, and opened the cover. At first, it appeared to be nothing more than meticulous financial records, neat rows of numbers and transactions written in my mother's steady hand. But as I flipped through the pages, my eyes widened. This was no ordinary household ledger. There were notes about land purchases, names of people I had never met, and transactions that stretched back decades. But in the margins, my mother had written personal observations, words that revealed far more than the numbers themselves. She wrote of my father's debts, of Rachel's manipulation, and of sacrifices she had made in silence to protect me. One entry in particular made my hands tremble. It was dated 20 years earlier. Sold necklace set to cover Rachel's gambling debt. She swore never again. But I know better. Anna must never know. I cannot let this destroy her faith and family. I froze. The jewelry Rachel had been flaunting, the one she had claimed was her birthright, had once been pawned to save her from ruin. My mother had somehow reclaimed it later, but its presence in Rachel's hands was a hollow prize. Then I turned another page and felt the floor. Beneath me deeded southern farmland to Anna, held in trust under alternate name. Cannot let Rachel discover this. The land is valuable, more than she could understand. When the time is right, Anna will know. She deserves stability and freedom. I dropped the ledger onto the table, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The farmland, under an alternate name, my mother had secured it for me all along, keeping it hidden from Rachel. The walls of the farmhouse seemed to close in as the weight of it sank into me. Rachel thought she had won with her glittering necklaces and bracelets, but she had no idea that I was the one holding the true inheritance. I closed the ledger and pressed it to my chest. I wanted to run to the courthouse immediately, to demand records, to confirm everything, but something inside me whispered caution. Rachel was not stupid. She was cruel and calculating, and if she suspected even a shred of what I had found, she would do anything to take it from me. As if on cue, the front door banged open. My heart leaped into my throat. Rachel stood in the doorway, her figure framed by the fading afternoon light. She had that look on her face again, the one that always told me she had come to gloat. "What are you doing here, Anna?" she asked, her tone dripping with mockery. "Still clinging to this drafty old place, while I polish our mother's jewels." I forced a smile, slipping the ledger under the folds of a nearby tablecloth. My hands burned with the need to protect it. "Just remembering," I said softly. "This kitchen holds a lot of memories." Rachel's eyes narrowed. She took a few steps forward, her heels clicking against the floor. "You look like you have something to hide," she said, tilting her head like a predator studying its prey. My pulse quickened, but I held her gaze. "The only thing I hide is my disappointment in you," I replied. Her smirk faltered, just for a moment, but then returned with sharp edges. "Enjoy your empty box, Anna," she sneered. "Some of us were chosen for real treasures. You were chosen for scraps." I clenched my fists under the table, the ledger pressing against my thigh. If only she knew. When she finally left, slamming the door behind her, I collapsed against the chair, my body trembling with adrenaline. The farmhouse felt alive with secrets, and now they were mine to guard. That night, under the weak glow of the lantern, I reread my mother's letter and the entries in the ledger. The pieces were falling into place, but one thing was clear. I could not keep this hidden forever. The land, the truth, and the lies Rachel had built her life upon were about to collide, and when they did, I would be ready. The night after Rachel stormed out of the farmhouse, I barely slept. The words in my mother's letter haunted me, whispering, against the silence of the dark. Hidden in the ledger was proof that something greater than jewelry had been set aside for me. Something Rachel had no idea existed. The farmland, held under an alternate name, felt like the key to every unanswered question by the time the sun rose. Casting golden light through the thin curtains, I had made up my mind. I needed proof, not just words written in fading ink, but solid evidence from the county records. If the land truly belonged to me, Rachel would not be able to erase it with lies or manipulation. I wrapped the ledger in brown paper, tied it securely with twine, and tucked it into my satchel. My hands shook as I locked the farmhouse door behind me, the weight of the secret pressing against my side. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of cut grass and damp soil. My heart pounded as I started the drive to the county courthouse. Building loomed ahead, its gray stone walls lined with ivy that had crept over decades. My steps echoed in the marble foyer as I approached the records office. A clerk, an older man with wire-rimmed glasses and a slow, deliberate manner, looked up from his desk. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice flat but polite. "Yes," I replied, steadying my voice. "I am looking for property records, specifically farmland in the Southern District. I believe it may have been deeded under an alternate name." The clerk adjusted his glasses, eyeing me curiously. "Do you know the name it might be listed under?" I hesitated before pulling the ledger from my satchel and opening it to the entry my mother had written. Her neat script revealed the name, Thomas Whitaker. "I think it might be under this," I said, pointing to the entry. The clerk's eyebrows lifted slightly. He nodded and disappeared into the archive room, leaving me standing there with my heart in my throat. Minutes dragged, like hours, every sound of rustling paper heightening my anxiety. At last, he returned with a thick file. "This is what we have on record for Thomas Whitaker," he said, sliding it across the counter. I opened the file and froze. There it was, in black and white. Deeds, tax records, land surveys, hundreds of acres in the Southern District, fertile farmland that had grown in value over the years. But what made my breath hitch was the note in the margins of one document, held in trust by Margaret Ellis, my mother's name. The room seemed to tilt around me. This was the proof I needed. My mother had placed the land in trust under a false name to keep it hidden from Rachel. And now, by all rights, it was mine. The clerk leaned closer. "Are you related to Margaret Ellis?" "Yes," I whispered. "She was my mother." "Then you should know," he said, lowering his voice. "This trust is due for review. If no rightful heir claims it, the property could be seized by the state. You may want to act quickly." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means. Clutching the file, I walked out of the courthouse into the blinding sunlight. The truth was mine, undeniable and solid, but a chill swept over me as I realized the danger of it. If Rachel discovered what I now held, she would not stop until she destroyed me to claim it for herself. That thought followed me all the way back to the farmhouse. I parked the car and stepped out, still clutching the satchel. The air felt heavy, as if the house itself sensed the storm brewing. I climbed the porch steps and unlocked the door, only to freeze. The kitchen window was cracked open, the curtain fluttering gently in the breeze. I was certain I had closed it before leaving. Fear prickled along my spine. I set the satchel down quietly and stepped into the kitchen. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Then I saw it. The tablecloth I had used to cover the ledger the day before was pushed back, as if someone had searched beneath it. My heart dropped. Rachel had been here. I rushed to the satchel and pulled out the ledger, flipping through the pages in a frenzy. Everything was still there, but the intrusion was clear. She knew I was hiding something. My phone buzzed, jolting me. A message from Rachel lit up the screen. Enjoying the farmhouse, Anna. I hope you're not wasting your time chasing ghosts. Some things are better left buried. My fingers tightened around the phone until my knuckles whitened. She was taunting me, confident that I would falter under her gaze. But she did not know what I now held. The deeds, the trust, the undeniable proof. That night I sat at the kitchen table, with the ledger open and the courthouse files spread before me. The lantern cast flickering shadows on the walls, making the room feel alive with secrets. I read and reread the documents, my mother's handwriting blending with the legal jargon, painting a picture of sacrifice, foresight, and protection. She had known Rachel's greed. She had known the jewelry would mean nothing in the end. The true treasure was land, steady and immovable, something that could not be pawned away in a fit of recklessness. As the hours stretched on, a sense of resolve settled over me. I would not let Rachel destroy what my mother had preserved, but if she already suspected, then I had to prepare. I drafted a letter to a lawyer, requesting formal confirmation of the inheritance. I needed it secured, legally recognized, and shielded from Rachel's interference. Each stroke of the pen felt like building a wall, one that Rachel would not easily climb. The farmhouse creaked around me, every sound magnified in the quiet night. My eyes burned with exhaustion, but I forced myself to keep working. This was no longer about jewelry, or even about fairness. It was about survival, about reclaiming what had been denied me for too long. As the candle burned low, I felt the weight of the future pressing against me. Rachel thought she had won, but the battle was only beginning. The land was mine, and with it, the power to rewrite everything. I closed the ledger and pressed my palm against its cover, whispering into the darkness, "I will protect this, Mother. I promise you." The shadows seemed to shift in response, as if the farmhouse itself approved, but deep down, I knew Rachel would not stop. She had already crossed into the farmhouse, already prowled through my secrets. She would come again, and when she did, it would not be with taunts. It would be with claws bared, and I would be ready. The farmhouse had always been a place of safety for me. Its creaking walls, its familiar sense of lavender and old cedar, had once been a shield against the world. But after finding the ledger and the courthouse records, the house no longer felt protective. It felt like a battlefield waiting for the clash. Rachel's intrusion the day before had left me raw. The window cracked open, the tablecloth shifted, the text message dripping with veiled threats. It was all her way of saying she was watching me. She was circling, waiting for the right moment to strike. I spent the morning pacing the kitchen, clutching a cup of tea I never drank. My lawyer's office had confirmed they would begin the process of securing the farmland deed under my name. But they warned me it would take time. Time I was not sure I had, because Rachel was restless. And Rachel was dangerous when restless. Around noon, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. My stomach twisted before I even looked. Through the window, I saw her car, sleek and shining, like a predator prowling into the yard. She stepped out, her heels clicking against the porch as if she owned it already. I braced myself as she swung the door open without knocking, her presence filling the kitchen like a storm. She wore one of her finest dresses, a glittering necklace catching the light, a piece from the jewelry collection our mother had given her. Her smirk was firmly in place. "Still hiding out here, Anna," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut. I thought maybe you would have come to your senses by now. I set the teacup down carefully, refusing to let my hands tremble in front of her. What exactly do you mean by that? Rachel stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. You think I do not know what you are up to? I saw the way you were guarding that old satchel. You found something, did you not? Mother left me the real inheritance, but you are digging around for scraps like a desperate beggar. Her words sliced into me, but I refused to flinch. If you came here to gloat, you can leave. I am not interested in your theatrics. Her laughter rang through the room, cold and cruel. Oh, Anna, always so self-righteous, always so sure that you are the victim. Let me be clear, whatever you think you found, it will not matter. You have nothing of value. The jewelry is mine. The house is crumbling around you. All you are left with are dusty boxes and broken dreams. I forced myself to meet her gaze. That is where you are wrong, Rachel. Mother left me something more valuable than jewelry. She left me the truth. Her smirk faltered, just for an instant, but she quickly recovered. Truth does not pay bills. Truth does not glitter on your neck. Truth cannot be sold to the highest bidder. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. But it can destroy lies. And you, Rachel, are built on lies. Her eyes blazed, the mask of control slipping for the briefest moment. Be careful, Anna, she hissed. You are playing a dangerous game. If you think you can humiliate me, if you think you can take anything from me, you will regret it. Spun on her heel and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I stood frozen, my chest heaving. Her words were not idle threats. Rachel had never accepted defeat gracefully, and now she knew I was hiding something. I spent the rest of the day in a fog of nerves. Every sound outside made me jump. Every creak of the floorboards felt like an intrusion. When evening fell, I lit the lantern and spread the courthouse file across the table again, trying to anchor myself in the hard truth of the documents. The land was mine. That fact could not be erased, but Rachel's shadow stretched long, and I knew she would not stop until she tried to rip it away from me. Later that night, as the wind howled against the shutters, I heard footsteps on the porch. My heart leaped. I rushed to the window and peered through the curtain. A figure moved across the yard, tall and broad-shouldered. Not Rachel herself, but someone else. My blood ran cold. She had sent someone. I grabbed the ledger and the courthouse file, shoving them into the satchel. My mind raced. I could not let them fall into her hands. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until they stopped directly at the door. A knock followed, heavy and deliberate. I held my breath, praying they would leave, but the knock came again, harder this time. Finally, a voice called out, Anna Ellis, this is Sheriff Morgan. Open up. Relief and suspicion warred inside me. I cracked the door and peered out. The sheriff stood there in his uniform, his hat pulled low against the wind. Evening, Anna, he said. I had a call. Your sister claims you might be in possession of items that do not belong to you. I need to ask you a few questions. My heart sank. Rachel had moved quickly, twisting the law into her weapon. Sheriff, whatever Rachel told you, it is not true, I said firmly. She has been harassing me, breaking into the farmhouse, trying to intimidate me. She is desperate because she knows what she received is not as valuable as she wants everyone to believe. The sheriff frowned. Anna, I am not here to arrest you. I just need to make sure nothing illegal is happening. Can I come inside? I hesitated but stepped aside. He entered slowly, glancing around the kitchen. The courthouse file still lay on the table, half covered by the satchel. His eyes flicked to it, and I quickly moved to block his view. Those are my personal documents, I said firmly. I am not here to invade your privacy, he replied. But Rachel is stirring up trouble. She came to my office today, claiming you are forging papers, trying to lay claim to land that never belonged to you. I need to know if there is any truth to what she says. I met his gaze steadily. The only truth is in those documents, and if Rachel wants to drag the law into this, then let her. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. His expression softened slightly. I believe you, Anna, but be careful. Rachel is relentless, and she has influence in town. She will not stop until she gets what she wants. After he left, the farmhouse fell into silence again, but it was no longer the silence of peace. It was the silence before a storm. I sat at the table, staring at the documents, my mother's letter, and the ledger. Rachel had made her move, and now the law was watching. I could not afford a single mistake. The jewelry had once been the symbol of her power, the glittering prize she used to flaunt her victory. But what I now held was greater, heavier, and infinitely more dangerous. The land was not just property, it was leverage, a legacy, and a weapon in its own right. Rachel had shown her teeth, but I had something she could never take from me, the truth written in my mother's own hand. And I knew one thing with absolute clarity. The next time Rachel came for me, it would not be with words or threats. It would be war. The following days were heavy with tension. Every morning, I woke to the sound of the wind scraping against the shutters. But beneath it I felt something else watch, a quiet but relentless presence. Rachel's threats had stopped being words. Now they had weight, and I knew it was only a matter of time before she struck harder. The sheriff's visit had shaken me, though I tried not to show it. Rachel's lies were becoming bolder, her reach extending further. The courthouse had begun processing the claim for the farmland under my name. But the lawyer warned me that Rachel had already filed objections. She wanted to tie the process in knots until I gave up. But I would not give up. That morning, I packed the ledger and the courthouse file into a locked steel box and tucked it beneath the loose floorboard in my bedroom. If Rachel sent anyone to ransack the farmhouse again, they would not find it easy. I carried the key on a chain around my neck, hidden beneath my blouse, close enough that I could feel its cold bite against my skin. By late afternoon, clouds gathered thick and heavy, and rain began to fall. The farmhouse groaned under the storm, each clap of thunder rattling the windows. I sat at the table with a candle flickering beside me, writing notes for the lawyer, when a sound cut through the storm. Glass shattering. I leaped to my feet, the pen falling from my hand. My heart raced as I rushed into the living room. The side window had been smashed. Shards scattered across the floor. Rain blew in with the wind, and the curtains billowed violently. A shadow moved outside. I grabbed the poker from the fireplace and held it tight in my trembling hands. The front door creaked open, and I froze, my breath trapped in my chest. Two figures stepped inside, their faces half hidden by hoods soaked with rain. They were not Rachel, but I knew she had sent them. Their eyes swept the room, sharp and calculating. "Where is it?" one of them barked, his voice rough. My grip tightened on the poker. "Get out of my house," I demanded, forcing my voice to stay steady. The second man sneered. "We are not leaving until we find it." She said, "You have something that does not belong to you." My pulse hammered. Rachel had crossed the line completely now. She had sent intruders to take by force what she could not prove by law. The first man stepped forward, reaching for the table where I had been working. He flipped through the scattered notes, but I had hidden the important documents well. Still, I knew they would tear the farmhouse apart until they found them. I raised the poker, my arms trembling but firm. "Touch another thing, and I swear you will regret it." They laughed, cruel and dismissive, but they paused. One of them leaned closer, his eyes glinting. "You think you can fight us? We can make you disappear, just like that. All for a few pieces of paper. Hand them over, and no one gets hurt." Fear surged through me, but beneath it was fire. "This is my house, my mother's legacy. You will not take it from me." Before they could move again, headlights cut through the storm outside. A car pulled into the drive, its beams flashing across the broken window. The men stiffened. The front door burst open, and Sheriff Morgan stormed in, his revolver drawn. "Step back," he barked, hands where I can see them. The intruders froze, their bravado faltering. The sheriff moved swiftly, securing them with practiced ease. I lowered the poker, my entire body shaking as adrenaline drained from me. When the men were dragged out into the storm, the sheriff turned to me, his face stern but not unkind. "I had a feeling she would try something like this," he said. "Rachel has been stirring the pot all over town, but sending men into your house, that is criminal. You need to press charges." I sank into a chair, my legs barely holding me. "She will not stop, Sheriff. She wants what my mother left me, and she will destroy anything in her way." He nodded grimly. "Then you need to make this official. Bring the documents to me tomorrow, and I will put them on record. Once the law has it, Rachel cannot touch it." I hesitated, the thought of revealing the ledger and the file gnawing at me. But he was right. As long as I kept them hidden, Rachel would keep sending shadows into the night. It was time to bring the truth into the light. When the sheriff left, the farmhouse felt eerily quiet. The storm raged on outside, but inside, the silence pressed heavily. I cleaned up the broken glass with trembling hands. each shard catching the candlelight like fragments of a shattered past. That night, I locked every door and window, but sleep would not come. I lay awake listening to the rain drum against the roof, the key cold against my chest, my mind replaying every word, every threat, every crack of breaking glass. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. Though my nerves remained frayed, I retrieved the steel box from beneath the floorboard and placed it carefully in the satchel. Today, I would go to the sheriff with the truth. As I prepared to leave, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My face looked older, harder, lines of fatigue etched across my skin. But in my eyes, there was resolve. Rachel thought she could frighten me into surrender, but she had only sharpened my will. Driving into town, the roads were slick with rain, the fields shining with fresh water. The courthouse loomed ahead, and I parked with a deep breath. The satchel felt heavy in my hand as I stepped inside. The sheriff met me in his office, his expression serious. I set the steel box on his desk and unlocked it, revealing the ledger and the courthouse file. "This is what she wants," I said quietly. "This is what my mother left me." He examined the documents carefully, his brow furrowing as he read. "This is solid," he said at last. "The land is yours. And with this ledger, we have evidence of Rachel's deception. If she tries to claim otherwise, she will expose herself." Relief flooded through me, though fear still lingered at the edges. Rachel would not take this defeat quietly. "You need to be careful," the sheriff warned. "She is angry and desperate. People make dangerous choices, but you are not alone in this anymore." I thanked him and left, the satchel lighter, now that the burden was shared. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. But when I returned to the farmhouse that evening, hope turned to dread. The porch was littered with shards of porcelain, smashed deliberately. My mother's old flower pots, the ones she had loved, lay in ruins across the steps. A message had been scrawled across the door in red paint. "This is not over." I stood frozen, the words burning into my vision. Rachel had struck again. Not with shadows this time, but with open malice. The war was no longer hidden. It had begun. It had begun. The red paint on my door stayed with me through the night. Even after I scrubbed the wood raw with soap and water, the words lingered in my mind like a wound that refused to heal. This is not over. Rachel was no longer hiding behind whispers or hired intruders. She had declared open war, and I knew it would not end quietly. The next morning, I went to town again. I could not stay in the farmhouse and wait for the next attack. The sheriff had already filed the documents from the ledger and the courthouse papers, securing them in the official record. But Rachel was too proud to accept defeat. She would try to humiliate me, to strip away not only the land but my dignity as well. When I stepped into the courthouse that day, the air inside was thick with tension. The hearing had been moved up. Rachel had demanded it. I walked into the chamber, and my heart clenched when I saw her sitting at the front, her chin lifted high, her smile sharp and cruel. She was dressed in a tailored suit, pearls gleaming at her neck, her posture radiating confidence. At her side sat her lawyer, a man with slicked hair and a smirk that matched hers. Across the aisle, my lawyer adjusted his glasses nervously, but when he saw me enter, he gave a nod. He had the documents in hand. The truth was on our side. Still, the room felt heavy, as if Rachel's presence alone was enough to sway the air against me. The judge entered, and everyone rose. His gavel struck once, and the proceedings began. Rachel's lawyer spoke first, his voice smooth and commanding. My client, Rachel, was entrusted with the family's legacy. He declared she was given the responsibility to safeguard their mother's estate. Yet her sister Anna has sought to undermine her, claiming rights to property she has no entitlement to. We will show today that Rachel is the rightful heir, and that Anna's supposed documents are nothing more than fabrications. Rachel's eyes glittered as he spoke, her smile widening as if she had already won. She looked at me then, her gaze sharp as a blade, daring me to falter. My lawyer stood next, his hands steady though his voice carried quiet steel. What we have here is not fabrication but truth. Anna's mother left behind records, carefully preserved, that make clear her intention. The land was hers to pass, and she chose to pass it not to Rachel, but to Anna. Today, we will present that evidence. The judge leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Proceed. The hearing stretched long, each side throwing words like stones. Rachel's lawyer painted her as the devoted daughter, the caretaker who had been burdened with responsibility while I lived freely without concern. He spoke of sacrifices she claimed to have made, bills she said she had paid, debts she claimed she had covered. It was a carefully woven story, threaded with half-truths and outright lies. But then my lawyer laid the ledger on the table. The room shifted. Gasps echoed when he opened it to reveal my mother's handwriting. The judge leaned closer as my lawyer read aloud. To my daughter Anna, I leave the farmhouse and the land, for it was always her home. Rachel has her inheritance in the form of jewelry and financial accounts already provided. Each word struck like a hammer. Rachel's face tightened, her smile faltering. Still, she leaned forward and hissed at her lawyer, urging him on. This ledger could have been forged, her lawyer argued. Anyone can imitate handwriting. We will need an expert to verify. The judge nodded, but before he could speak, my lawyer produced the courthouse file. Inside were notarized deeds and letters, stamped and signed years earlier, confirming the transfer of rights to me. It was undeniable, official, sealed by the very system Rachel had hoped to manipulate. Rachel's lawyer faltered, his confidence slipping. He glanced at her, but she offered no lifeline. Her face was pale now, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Still, she rose to her feet, her voice sharp. This is a lie, all of it. My mother would never have done this. She knew I was the one who carried this family. She knew I was the one who deserved it. Anna does not understand what it means to sacrifice. She does not deserve what she has stolen. Her words cut through the chamber, filled with raw fury. But the judge silenced her with a raised hand. Sit down, Rachel. The rest of the hearing was brief. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge delivered his ruling with finality. The court recognizes Anna as the rightful heir to the farmhouse and the land. The evidence presented is clear and binding. Rachel's claim is dismissed. The gavel struck once more, echoing like thunder. The chamber erupted in murmurs, some sympathetic, others scandalized. Rachel stood frozen, her face twisted with rage. I remained seated, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Relief washed over me, but it was heavy with exhaustion. I had won, but the victory felt fragile, as if it could shatter with one more strike from Rachel's wrath. When the chamber emptied, Rachel approached me. Her steps were quick, her eyes blazing. She leaned close, her voice low but seething. You may have fooled them, but you cannot fool me. This is not finished. You will regret crossing me. I met her gaze, my own voice steady, though my chest ached with fear. No, Rachel, it is finished. Mother chose me, and no amount of hatred will change that. Her lips curled in a bitter smile, but she said no more. She turned and stormed out, her heels striking the floor like hammers. I left the courthouse with my lawyer at my side. The documents returned safely to me. The air outside was bright with sunlight, a sharp contrast to the storm that had raged inside. People passed by, some offering nods of approval, others whispering. The truth was out now. Rachel's mask had cracked, and the whole town had seen it. That evening, I returned to the farmhouse. The porch was still scarred from her vandalism, but inside, the air felt different. The house seemed to breathe with me, lighter, freer, as if the weight of secrecy had lifted. I lit a candle in the kitchen and set the ledger on the table. My mother's handwriting glowed in the soft flame, her words etched with love and finality. I touched the page, tears pricking my eyes. Thank you, Mother, I whispered, for trusting me, for believing in me. The farmhouse creaked gently in response, like a voice carried on the wind. I knew Rachel would not vanish from my life entirely. Her bitterness ran too deep. But she could no longer take what was mine. The law had spoken, the truth had prevailed. That night, as I locked the doors and windows, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. It was not perfect, nor was it permanent, but it was enough. I stood by the window, looking out over the fields my mother had cherished. The moon cast a silver glow across the land, and for the first time, I felt it truly belonged to me, not as a prize won in battle, but as a gift, a legacy of love, secured against the storm. Rachel's voice echoed faintly in my memory, sharp and venomous, but it no longer held power. The farmhouse was mine, the land was mine, and more importantly, my mother's choice had been honored. The war was over, and though scars remained, I was no longer afraid to live here, to carry forward the legacy that had been entrusted to me. The farmhouse was no longer a place of fear. It was my home. It was my home.